on a second. No one graduates until Security Guy Radio says so.
Welcome to a I cannot say version of Security Guy Radio with Chuck, Morocco Mo Harold. Is that
Paul Enigma Bristow.
Oh my God! I was going to say Chuck Secret Squirrel. You wanted to be
sorry.
Secret Squirrel. Oh my God! You botched it up. All right, then I'm Secret Squirrel, and you're Morocco Mo.
No, I'm Enigma.
Oh my God!
You know what the Enigma was?
We rehearsed these things, and then look what happens.
Well, so I've got
All
to
right,
throw,
go
got to throw a
ahead.
wrench at it.
That's okay.
Keep you thinking.
Okay, that's fine.
Keep you on your toes.
Well, it is a rather slightly secret program today because we're going to talk about things that have to do with backgrounds and a program called the National Industrial Security Program, which, by the way, since I'm kind of a security guy idiot, I've never heard of that. Have you?
No, I haven't.
We're going to talk about it.
It was a secret to me.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
It's been kept a secret.
So this is, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, this is Series 5 of 5. Did I get it right this week?
Except for my name, which is Chris.
No, I was calling Brian Brian. I was talking to Brian. I just wasn't addressing you. Maybe you got your name wrong.
You should put your glasses on. He thought you was pointing at him. It's a secret point. That's the secret point.
All right. Series number 5 of the Webster University. Great debates with the students talking about a million different topics. So now Chris Silva, welcome. Chris Silva is the professor at Webster University that teaches the master's course, one of the master's courses in security management. So last couple of weeks we've talked about the university and the background, that kind of thing. Today I'd kind of like to start with letting us know what the program entails. What are the blocks? You have your class and what you teach, right? But what are some of the other things that people go through in this 2-year program?
So, like you mentioned, this is the class is Security Administration and Management, and we talk about organizing and staffing a security department, whether that would be, regardless of the business, how you'd put that together, the requirements for that, management principles, and those pretty much apply regardless of whether it's security or otherwise.
Well, like business management principles in general, yeah.
Precisely.
Although, Paul, you may agree that guards have a very unique need to be managed in a certain way, but
you
I
can't
digress
include
on
that in the normal management.
Normal business practices, standardized, bookkeeping and
okay, right.
accounting and
Count
whatnot.
beans and everything, yeah.
Right, P&L. Terminology, facts, concepts, things that apply to security. And then that's where I enjoy injecting a lot of, no kidding, there I was, give them some examples that I've had in my career. And
right.
I know that you guys like to do the same in here. It keeps it interesting.
Well, I think you learn from the experience. I mean, it's one thing to learn in a book. It's nothing to do it and say, oops, that didn't work and adjust it. Now, is this just your course or is this like the whole curriculum?
So,
or do you teach the whole course? Does your class give the masters or is there other professors involved? That's what I wasn't clear on.
Okay. So I teach 4 of the 6.
Oh, okay.
And then the capstone, which is the final course in that major, in that specialization, is another professor, a esteemed colleague of mine. And then the information security portion is typically taught by yet another.
Oh, that's different. It's set aside. Why is that?
That's a very specialized field of knowledge, and it's really used a lot near these military industrial complexes
right.
that Webster caters to.
Oh, okay.
So, there's a lot of ongoing and changing information in that
How
field.
deeply did I get into the information security side of it?
Well, I think as we're going to see today, we can talk about the generalities, but when it comes down to how you apply those at the various locations, of course, that's something that they like to keep to themselves.
Well, are you teaching the students more the technical side of, IT stuff and protection or, policy concepts? Because from my experience, the IT part and the physical part are one and the same. They're woven together. And IT likes to separate and say, oh, no, that's way above your head. We're going to handle that. And they know nothing about physical security, right? So what happens? Oh, Snowden happens, which we're going to talk about today, right? And that happened, in my opinion, because nobody was standing around as the cop on the watch saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And if they'd been doing that, he wouldn't have done it. It's very simple. See how easy it is here at Security Guy University is what I'm going to call it now. It's very simple.
Simplified.
Very simplified. Oh, it's interesting. I'm just curious. I mean,
But
so they're really teaching more of a, since these are military students mostly, they're kind of getting more into that specifics of how it works with the military complex.
Certainly is where their comfort level is,
Right.
having come from there typically. But, you know, I was talking with the information security colleague in the past, and, you know, basically we're both keeping the wrong people out while letting the right people in. Same thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, we had this problem with Fox because intellectual property, we're going to call it intellectual property, that's what you're stealing. You're not really stealing the can of film because you can get that anywhere, but they like to steal the intellectual property first and then try to convert it. And that's just a bunch of ones and zeros. And you'd be amazed on what the things they did do. Like, for example, they had remember the big script shredder?
Oh, yeah.
So you take all the scripts at the end of the week and shred them, and they protected documents like that. But your computer, it's on, no password, don't worry about it. It's never really caught up, and it all comes down to people not doing individual things.
Well, we didn't have too many issues of people actually hacking into the system. I mean,
no, because we had some good IT guys,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, except remember the
penetration stuff.
the China thing. Remember that?
Yeah.
So we had
well, it does happen a couple of times, but
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think that's the biggest risk.
Oh, I disagree with you. I think it's
What,
information.
penetration?
Yeah, I think it's the information part, not the. I'm not worried about bombs and bullets.
No, what I'm saying is it's employees and people that have got physical access to the system.
Oh, that's right. That's why the physical
more than
security
the
is so important.
penetration side
That's
of it.
right.
You know, that's what I'm saying.
So the IT people do a good job of keeping the firewalls up, but most of these things happen from the inside because the guy's already inside your perimeter. But who's watching, who's policing them, and policies don't do it. It has
What
to be
if I
someone
hired the
else.
wrong person?
Well,
You know.
I think that's almost impossible to get right sometimes. But I think from what I've read in your paper, we're going to find out today that they probably could do a much better job. That's my personal
Oh, have we
opinion.
got a paper on this stuff? Then?
We do have a paper
Oh,
on this.
wow,
You didn't do your homework today?
no.
You're a bad student. Bad student. Go
Dual-
sit in the corner.
Duly noted.
I thought today's was a secret.
Well,
In fact, he was going to tell me what it was about
it's
till I got here.
well, you have the enigma. Didn't the British invent that thing?
Yeah, the Enigma machine.
No, the Germans invented it, and you stole it from the Germans off a U-boat.
Actually, the English
Okay.
invented it and probably gave it to the Germans because the English invented everything.
Well, they didn't invent
Right,
the computer.
especially secret
They
squirrel
didn't
stuff.
invent the computer. That's true. I remember. The first mechanical computer was them. All right, I digress as usual.
I thought that was a vice president. Oh, that was the internet.
No,
Sorry,
we
yeah,
invented the
yeah.
internet. Gore did, but
Yeah,
the British
Gore,
invented
yeah.
that. Why do I keep hearing this twanging sound? Who's
I
doing
keep
that?
on hearing it myself. I'm trying to.
Who's doing that? Is it that sound right
It's not
there?
me. It's a
All right.
secret.
It's a secret. So, Chris, we digressed again. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Too much joviality going on around here. All right, so you have basically 3 professors that teach us over a 2-year course.
Correct.
And what's weighted more heavily?
They're all equal. They're all 3 credits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, you know, there's a series of electives that you can take, and this makes
Oh,
up
that's
the
interesting.
program.
Okay.
So,
Tell me
so-
some electives.
Well, within the program, there's, like I said, information security, security management, the capstone. There's also protection of business assets, and a couple others. Basically, you've got to take, I want to say 4 of the 5 in order to have enough credits within that field to graduate with the degree.
So, okay. And I don't know anything about college. I'm a big idiot, okay? I didn't go to college. But you're saying that there's a base course you have to take, and there's more electives that complete the course? So if you want to specialize in something, you can take that elective?
I'm saying that there, of the 5, I believe you got to take 4 and the capstone, so you can rule out the one that's probably least interesting
Oh,
to
okay.
you.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. So we're going to talk about our last paper today. And just so happens to be, it's funny you should mention information security. Just this happens to be a paper about the National Industrial Security Program, or NISP. Is that how you pronounce it? NISP. And this is written by Irby Burnett and Lisa Ziegler. Welcome to the show, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are we being monitored? Is that what all those
I
twanging
think
sounds
it
are?
is.
It's possible.
Yeah, I think they found out at the show.
All right, so you guys wrote this paper as your white paper to, I think bring to light something that's going on in the military-industrial complex that we weren't aware of, and that's how we do background checks. Okay, so explain to me, and whoever wants to take this, up to you guys. Explain to me what exactly the National Industrial Security Program is.
Well, basically, the NISP is the program that dictates how contractors get access to classified information.
Oh, how contractors do.
Yeah,
Okay.
contractors, actually military, DOD,
Right.
just access to classified information, like what level and, what you have to go through to get access.
And who runs that program?
That is four different organizations in the program.
I saw that. Yeah, and it seems like they all have authority over each section they're responsible for, or cross authority.
Correct.
And that may be one reason it doesn't work right away, because there's 4 people running, 4 agencies running it. It's a little tip right there for the government, in case they're listening, which they are, I'm sure. So this says under the ISOO, the Secretary of Defense is normally the executive agent. So it seems like it falls under that first. And then there's 4 other agencies that have equal authority, and that's the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, Central Intelligence Agency, Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Those all make sense to me. I mean, you can't be around a nuclear reactor without a background check, and energy's, our infrastructure, that kind of thing. So these organizations do, in essence, the background checks, Lisa, is that correct, for the private security or private contractors that are involved in that?
Yes.
Okay. That's a very good answer. Okay. And then what? Well, tell me, Lisa, tell me about this. So they come out and they do these standards. So does this organization do the military background checks, by the way?
No.
Okay. It's not a game show, by the way.
Right.
Quit.
I know. Sorry, I'm just so nervous.
Oh, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. We're just having fun here. Okay. So only contract employees, only private employees.
Yeah, they actually hire out to do the background checks. It's an agency that actually goes out.
Oh, they don't even do the background checks themselves.
Yeah,
they
it's-
hire someone else to do them.
Correct.
Who checks them?
Yeah.
They check themselves? No, I'm serious. If they're a contractor doing background checks, who's checking them?
I forget exactly which agency does it, but they do like all the background checks for the military and all those guys.
Is it a government agency or is it a
Yes.
contracted?
If I had my
sort of
if I had
company?
my iPhone, I could Google it. Real
Well, that's okay. Well, it kind of sets up how this is a mess to begin with, right? So you got an agency, NISP, who's run under the Secretary of Defense, and there's 4 agencies: Department of Defense, Department of Energy, Central Intelligence, and Nuclear Regulatory Commission, that all utilize this to do background checks on vendors, but they subcontract the background work out to non-government agencies. Is that the gist of it?
Yes.
And we wonder why there's a problem. Okay. All right. So it says here under the operating manual, it requires all government contractors, to get clearances for classified information. I suppose they classify that as different levels. And it's been reported that some of these procedures are not being adhered to by the agencies because of lack of manpower and funding problems. What do you think about that? That sounds like a bunch of baloney to me.
Well, actually, that's true. I mean, I'm actually Irby Burnett. I'm retired military. I've been in the military for like 25 years.
I forgot to ask that question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. What service?
Air Force.
Air Force.
25 years, and part of my service.
25 years, Ian. Look at this guy.
That's a long time.
Look at him.
Yes.
He looks like
Yeah.
he's like 30 years old.
He looks a lot younger than you. That's
Lisa,
for
how long
sure.
you been in were you in the military?
8 years.
In what service?
In the Air Force.
Air Force again. Okay, I beg your pardon. Thank you for your service. I forgot to do that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And part of my job was one of my additional duties was actually a security manager, and that basically ensures that people that access certain areas or certain information were cleared to the correct level, and even myself being secret or top secret clearance, they're required to come and check me out every 10 years for secret and every 5 years for top secret.
10 years seems like an awfully long time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. So
And-
much can happen in between that time frame.
Something can happen in a month. All right.
I know.
Now, but to clarify, were both of you sworn personnel or civilian Air Force?
Oh, active
Yeah,
duty,
active
yes.
duty.
Both active
sworn,
duty.
yes.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. So because you're involved in this intelligence component, this private contractor is supposed to come in either every 5 years or 10 years and check your backgrounds.
Correct.
And without disclosing top secret information, was that done?
No, they just didn't have at certain periods of time. I'm sure they're on time now, but at certain periods of time, they just didn't have the manpower
Yeah.
or the funding to dedicate to do it on time. There's been periods where I was 4 or 5 years deficient. I mean, should have been checked out, and it just wasn't done. And you noted it, and you let everybody
Right.
know, and
You can't
all-
background check
yeah,
yourself, I
all
suppose.
everything was checked and on paperwork. Yeah, these guys are due, but we just kept waiting until somebody finally got free and came and checked us out.
All right, so the government goes out and hires a contractor, I don't know, ABC background company, whatever it is. They're going to do these things. They pay them a boatload of money. And they pay twice as much or 10 times more than they should because they're the government. And these guys can't get it done. I don't get it. I don't get that at all. And why isn't somebody saying, why isn't this done? And why isn't somebody coming in and making them do it? I don't get that part. Do we know?
I'm not sure. I heard, because I asked about it recently since I was coming on the show, and I heard that things have got better now. They put more emphasis on where they need to be. But definitely during the time when I was younger in the military, it was not being done on time. So.
Good grief, Paul Bristow.
My God. Makes me feel
We're all
unsafe.
doomed. We're all doomed. Perfect time for a break. Back in a minute on Security Guy Radio. SecurityGuyRadio.com.
Security breach. Security breach. Security breach.
Welcome back to Security Guy Radio. That's SecurityGuyRadio.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. Who am I forgetting?
I think you got it.
No, there's 6 now.
Is it?
There's 6, and I can't remember all the places.
Say Twitter.
LinkedIn.
Oh, I didn't say
Oh,
Twitter.
Twitter.
Twitter, I
You
missed
say
Twitter.
LinkedIn.
And SecurityGuyRadio.com. Where
And
we'll
LinkedIn.
be. I think I got that one.
And LinkedIn.
Yeah, you said
Okay,
it.
I said it. LinkedIn.
Twice, 3 times.
And Facebook.
All right. Welcome back to Security Guy Radio with our guests, Irby Burnett and Lisa Ziegler from Webster University, graduate students in the master's program. And we're talking about the National Industrial Security Program. Now, we left off, we were talking about how you're supposed to have a background check every 5 or 10 years, depending on your secret, top secret level.
Well, what were you?
I was, most of my career I was a secret, but then at the end of my career I was in a position where I was in charge of a SCIF, basically classified information, highly classified. So I had to get a TS for that one. So
Okay.
What's a TS?
top secret,
Okay.
top secret.
All right, and you
Sorry.
got
What about Lisa? What was you?
I was just security clearance, just a basic one.
basic,
level.
okay.
Yes.
Kind of what everybody gets, level
Mhm.
1. All right.
Yes.
And you were in 20-something years,
Yes.
and how often did you get checked?
I got checked maybe 3 times. Maybe
man.
3 times, yes.
All right, let's talk about the first time, which I'm hoping was the most thorough. What did that entail?
Or actually 4 times. Before I came in the military, they actually did a check on me, and the secret level checks are not as thorough as the TS check. Basically, the secret check, they ran your credit report definitely, and they looked at your whole life on the computer, basically. But I really didn't notice it. Like the TS, I really noticed it because they made appointments with me, anybody that knew me, my neighbors, my my coworkers, relatives from another state. They would call them, and actually someone would go and talk to them and do a face-to-face interview with them. That's the TS level.
For the top secret.
Yeah, but in the secret level, like I said, a lot of things I didn't really even know. I just knew on paper it says active investigation was going on.
They did less than a background check on a guard.
Yeah.
Really. Government for you.
Yeah.
All right, so
Unless you're just reading the different levels here. So confidential, which is I'm assuming what the lowest is, level 1. Foreign employments, immediate relatives, marriages, common law relationships must be declared and screened.
declared.
Declared.
Right.
You've got to declare it. So I don't know whether they actually go back and try and find out. Do they dig? That's the
yeah.
question, right? Do
You
they?
would notice if they did, believe me.
Yeah, so I'm going to say, I didn't notice that, so I'm going to say for myself, they probably did not.
Yeah.
And then secret, which is level 2, the same as before. Level of clearance will grant the access to designate. It just actually tells you what, doesn't actually tell you what else they do, which is interesting. And it looks as though a department head has got the discretion to allow this higher level, which is interesting. And then for top secret, that's when they get into foreign travel, assets, character references. So why wouldn't you just do that?
Why don't you do it for everybody?
Right.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense,
It,
right?
it makes no sense. It's illogical. It's stupid. I'll say it's stupid, NSA, in case you're listening. Because if you solve for the higher level, you're eliminating a lot of the
You're not going
problems.
to have the problems.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take that much more to do. I've had a PI license since '88 or something like that. And I've done a lot of background checks, thousands of them. And the best background check I ever participated in was when I got hired for, San Gabriel and Culver City, PD.
Yeah, PD were good.
Talk about a background
Yeah.
check. I mean, they're at your houses, they're at your previous addresses, they're interviewing your former neighbors. They go back, and talk about girlfriends you had 15 years ago. It's your life is just picked apart. And what's the result? Do we hear about information stealing in police departments?
No,
Do we hear about
no.
giant corruption things? There's some, but it's not a giant problem. They're pretty much well screened. So this is very enlightening to me that they just kind of, I'm going to wing this stuff or something. It's very strange. Now, let's talk about the self-reporting. So let's say they're not doing the background check because, boy, they just got $1 billion paid to them and they just don't have enough money to build it, and do it because there's not enough money, just like this stupid, affordable care machine they couldn't build. So what are you supposed to do to self-report? How is that supposed to help? Are you supposed to walk in and say, hey, I stole some secrets by you the way. I'm just sorry. Sorry about that.
Well, in the military, you are required to self-report or self-identify because, being a military member, you are supposed to adhere to higher standards.
Sure, code of ethics, right.
So, if, for instance, if you get a DUI, you're supposed to self-report that or self-identify to your commander or your immediate supervisor or your superiors to let them know, like, hey, I got a DUI. Any type of financial difficulties you may be facing or difficult, like hardships with finances, you're supposed to also self-identify with that as well. Any type of drug problem that you may have. So different things like that, you're supposed to, sound the alarm on yourself and have, integrity first and go and say, like, I have a problem.
Do you think that happens?
I'm going to say just human nature. I'm sure some people do the right thing, but I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that don't because they're afraid of the consequences, even though they know that their actions, were wrong.
Right.
So what are the consequences? I mean, if you was to self-declare a DUI, say.
Well, I know.
As it pertains to your clearance, let's say.
Okay, so
You're not going to get court-martialed for DUI, but,
Right, I'm sure. Okay, so I'm just only speculating here, only because I've never experienced a DUI, but I did experience a drug use problem with some of my troops and what happened to them. So with the DUI, I'm going to say that if you have a top secret security clearance and you get a DUI, if you self-report, I think that the consequences would be a little not as tough because you raised your hand and said, hey, I got a DUI, even though I didn't have to tell you. I told on myself. So I think you're still going to get in trouble and get reprimanded, but it probably wouldn't be as severe as if you didn't report it and it just kind of came out and you got,
So what you got to decide is whether or not you're going to get caught.
Well,
Basically,
I wouldn't want to play that game, but I'm sure there are some people that do, but I
Well,
wouldn't play that game.
on the other hand, I mean, if you're self-reporting, I'm less interested in what they do with you as far as throwing you in a brig or court-martialing you. I'm really more interested in whether they take your clearance away. That doesn't seem to be what happens, necessarily.
Right. I think it's all circumstantial, so it just depends on the situation. Like, for instance, when I was in the military, I did have a troop that had experienced drug use and abusing prescription painkillers, and this troop did not self-identify. I reported them. We went through the whole, reprimanding system, and they were, separated from the military.
Okay, so problem one we talked about earlier is that we have this security organization that's overseen by the Secretary of Defense, but 4 agencies have their fingers in it. They have say-sos, they have methods, and I'm going to guess each one of them has a different methodology, probably no standardization. Second problem I see is we have a lack of background checks done on acquired timelines. And by the way, I think the timelines are ridiculous. Chris, do you think they're a little bit 5 and 10 years? That seems a little wacky to me.
Well, certainly a lot can happen in that matter of time.
Yeah. I mean, we do background checks once a year on guards.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah.
just to pop a criminal thing or something. I mean, you could literally be in the brig. You could be arrested on leave, and if you were on 2 weeks leave and you went in and you plead and did something, you could have the whole thing go away, and before you got back to the base, nobody would ever know about it.
Well, I think, like Lisa was, referring to, it's going to get found out. There's no way that you're going to be able to stay in and this not come to
I
the
agree with
surface
you.
at some point.
I agree with you.
So
The question is when and how much damage is done in between.
exactly
That's the issue.
that's it. And so they give you a lighter sentencing or a lighter set of circumstances if you self-report, and that
No, it
sort of
makes
sets
sense.
a precedence. So,
I'm just be curious to know if they actually yank you out of the top secret levels, because that's what I would want you to do, because that's what we're talking about is your ethics and commitment and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's real important to remember that with background checks and security clearances, they're looking at the whole person. So if you've got a red flag in the, let's say you were married to a foreign national, but you were a Boy Scout, and use that term, not literally. You were all these great things, straight shooter, all the way, everything else, no questions as far as legal trouble or drug use. Then they can probably, overlook that red flag as far as the marriage to a foreign person.
Let's go to problem number 3, which is talked about, is we got the time gaps between the, being background checks being done. And then there doesn't seem to be any standard to say, you're in the security program, top secret stuff, and now you didn't behave. Now we got number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 4. You know what? Can't we just go bring somebody into the program that doesn't have a foreign national for a spouse? Isn't that easier? Because it is a red flag, and there's always a question, and we know that that's what spies do. They send people in to get close to things. They seem to make we're not really speaking for the military, because we don't know for sure, but just the way this loosey-goosey. I'll tell you what, we wouldn't run a background system like this at the police department or the studio.
No,
not in a million years.
No.
Because people would constantly be, getting away with stuff.
So what I think a lot of military contractors find is that you've got, say, somebody that started in the, let's say, 15 years ago and developed this body of knowledge and became something of a specialist, whether it's aircraft design or armored vehicles or what have you, ammunition, and they become a real specialist in this. Then in the course of that career, they marry somebody and their circumstances change. So now you've got a very specialized body of knowledge with this individual whose circumstances have changed. You've got to be a little bit flexible with that. And if you hire somebody new, you're going to lose all that background and knowledge.
That's why you have to have plan A, B, and C. You have to have redundancy.
Without a doubt.
It's got to be an A-10 Warthog. Can't shoot it down, right? You guys know what a Warthog is, don't you?
Yes.
Greatest aircraft ever made, right? Was that an Air Force aircraft or Marines or Army? Whose aircraft was that?
Air Force.
It was Air Force.
Force,
Oh,
yeah,
good,
I think so.
excellent. All right, so, I'm just critical of these things because everybody says, "Oh, we can't do this, we can't do this." I say, yeah, you can. You just don't want to because it's too complicated and too hard. I don't think it's too hard. All right, so I can see why now. If we're going to jump into an example of why the system does not seem to work, who's the guy that you look up the word? Background check failures in the dictionary, whose picture is going to show up?
Edward Snowden.
That's right.
Ed Snowden.
So after you've laid out for me how fakakta this whole thing is and how it's all these people running around and different, well, we got to be a little, loosey-goose on that, and then we wonder why Snowden. So who knows the most about Snowden that wants to talk about that story? I don't know too much about the guy, but you wrote a nice paper here about him.
I'm actually reading it now.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, look at that. We have
do
time to
some
read
homework.
after the break. Perfect. All right, back in a minute on Security Guy Radio. That's securityguyradio.com. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yes,
Yay, I got
that's
it right.
perfect.
Back in a minute.
Security breach. Security breach. Security breach.
Welcome back to Security Guy Radio with Chuck, Secret Squirrel Harold, and Paul.
007.5 Bristow.
Box 5. No, don't say that. Don't say Box 5.
Box 500.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, we're back with our Professor Chris Silva from Webster University, talking about the Security Administration and Management Program he administers. And our paper today is on the National Industrial Security Program with our former military and very honored guests, Irby Burnett and Lisa Ziegler.
Now, Lisa, where are you from originally? Because I detect a little bit of an accent that's not similar to mine, but it's definitely an accent.
Alabama.
Alabama. Okay, I was trying to get it there.
We left off with all the problems I seem to identify from this excellent paper. It's just kind of common sense, right? But yeah, there's all these excuses for budgets and oversight and blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is the government doesn't do anything good except go turn things into parking lots as the military. It's about the only thing they do well, all right? And the courts. And that's what they should do. But they don't do this kind of stuff good, which is why they outsource it. And then they don't have the common sense to oversee it and see what's going on and we get this problem. Let's talk about Mr. Snowden. Who wants to take Mr. Snowden's background?
I'll talk about him, and then Irby, if you want to jump in, you can
Yeah.
as well. So Edward Joseph Ed Snowden, according to Wikipedia.com, he is an American computer professional and former systems administrator for the CIA,
Okay.
and a counterintelligence trainer at the DIA, which is the Defense Intelligence Agency. After he did this, he later went on to be a private intelligence contractor for Dell, inside of the NSA, which is the National Security Agency. And he did this at an outpost in Japan. Basically,
And then he joined Booz Allen Hamilton.
yes.
Was that also in conjunction with Dell or something? Or
Yes, it's inside. It's in conjunction with it's in the NSA.
okay, so he went from a private contractor with Dell, left their employee, and then went for private employment with Booz Allen Hamilton.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Inside of the NSA. And in June of 2013, Eric Snowden, he basically committed espionage. He called himself a whistleblower, but he pretty much just leaked several thousands and thousands of pieces of classified documents that he acquired by working at the NSA, and being a contractor for Dell and Booz Allen. He leaked it, and he called himself a whistleblower, but I disagree with him being a whistleblower.
He broke the law, point blank.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna, you could. I mean, in theory, you could take those documents to the whistleblowing, remedy, which is government agencies, and say, "Look what I found here, all this stuff," and they take it and keep it classified, and they do something about it, maybe, right? But no, I agree with you. He did break the law on that. Now, the question is, or the issue is, would a background check every 5 or 10 years in this guy done anything to identify what he was doing? I'm going to say no. I don't know anything about it.
Was there any background check done on him?
Well, we don't know, but I'm just going to say it doesn't matter because if it's the standard, which is 5 to 10 years, it's not going to catch him.
See, I think I disagree.
What is a background check? Hey, you know Eric Snowden? Yeah, he's my next door neighbor. Has he stolen anything? Not that I know of, thanks. I mean,
I think if a proper background check had been done, they would have seen, as you can see in Wikipedia, if it's correct, that he had issues at the CIA.
oh, well, I agree with that. But
And why would you hire a guy that had issues at the CIA? That would tell you something.
well,
right?
because the Dell or Booz Allen Hamilton probably didn't have a background check procedure that was consistent with what the government wanted. They're doing the background checks, but they're not doing the background checks on their own employees.
Yeah, but
Right.
are the who's doing the background checks on these guys?
I mean, Edward Snowden was cleared for that information. He had a high-level security clearance.
when he was in
But-
the government, that
and-
doesn't
and-
automatically give him one for the private sector.
It lasts for a certain amount
Yeah.
of time,
Mhm.
and if he's getting access to another level, they'll clear him for that level of
Now,
information.
do we know
also.
when he got that original clearance? Was it after he left the CIA or was it before?
It should have been, if the program was working properly, intermittently while he's working. Still, every couple of years,
Yeah, if he gets it when he's 20 years old, it's good till he's 30 years old.
And-
if he
no,
leaves,
because he's got hired in the TS. He's got at least 5 years or more. We don't even know. I don't even know what level he was cleared at with the information.
so
that
he
had.
gets a high clearance inside the military, or I'm sorry, inside the intelligence government agencies. He leaves to become private. That clearance follows him, Chris. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the value that these ex-government employees bring is that clearance.
All right.
They're still cleared to see that level of information, and they are until the end of that period, and then they typically renew in the private sector and then continue on to
And
be
that's how
able
they
to
get-
access that.
They get their job in the private sector because they're already cleared.
That's right. That's where the value
Yeah, they
comes in.
save. The company saves a lot of money. They
Oh,
don't have
that's
to do The
good. I'm
background
glad they
check.
save money, but
Yes.
But
Yes.
keep in mind that this is
got my phone records. Oh, I'm good.
this is the government contractor, the private company that's saving the money.
I know,
That's doing it on the government's dime.
I learn
But-
something every day on this show.
But the question is, why would he keep that when he was reprimanded at the CIA for obtaining classified information without authority?
Well, because as our
How could he possibly keep
because
that?
of our esteemed guest told us, if he had self-reported, they'd slap his hand. If they found out about it, they have to make a discretion because he has a high level of knowledge,
Right.
and they can't just throw him out because he made a violation because they don't really replace him with. Is that the idea?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly correct.
But he resigned from the CIA.
Right.
So if he
Now-
resigns,
now-
he can't really reprimand.
Exactly.
He was reprimanded while he was in there. So that
then he
means that
resigned.
the background, they obviously don't
This
talk
is ridiculous.
to his previous employer.
This is
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah, that should have been.
Am
a
I
red
missing
flag.
something?
Yeah, I mean that was.
That's a
Yeah.
red flag.
Yeah, that definitely should have been a big indicator.
Yeah.
Oh, well, but you know what? I'm just guessing that he could not disclose to Dell that he had this. He couldn't tell Dell that he had some kind of issue inside his employment
Well,
with
I'm
the government.
actually guessing
'Cause that's
that-
all classified.
that the CIA wouldn't tell
That's what I'm saying.
the Department of Homeland Defense or whoever else was asking.
Right. It's all classified. He's
Right.
classified. His employment. Well, most employment records are confidential, by the way.
Does
Anyway.
the CIA come under the Department of Defense?
No, I think it's
Okay,
just a
there you
separate
go.
agency. Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, see, this is problematic.
And, regardless of who you're employed by, you've still got rights as an employee. And again, if someone doesn't ask the question, you'd be silly to volunteer, right?
Well, I'm suggesting that if he walks in to work for me and I need a high clearance level employee, and I say, I got a top secret. And I call the CIA. Has he got a top secret? Oh, yeah, he does. He's good. Well, what else happened? I can't tell you. We would know that he had a problem with the CIA. But I think his top secret should have been revoked. Had it been revoked because of his disciplinary action, like I discussed earlier in the first part of the show, he wouldn't have been able to get a job with Dell and have access. You see, once you're out, I think you got to be out.
Right.
It's not dissimilar to the police department. Kind of once you leave the police department, your friends will see you, but they're not not quite the same, right? Get out of the military, it's a little different. So
Did you have to do a polygraph?
I didn't at the level that I was cleared at, but
Does
I know
anybody?
people that did have to do
Okay.
polygraph.
top
Yes.
secret doesn't require a polygraph.
No, it's much higher levels. It's compartmentalized information that is much more sensitive than the information I was accessing. So
This is fascinating.
It
Okay.
is.
So what he means by compartmentalized is that you might work on a submarine program, you might work on a tank program. You don't necessarily need to know about submarines.
Right.
So it's compartmentalized to, and they get obviously much more granular than that. But that's the thought process there, that the folks within that program need to know about that and something related to it, but something divergently different does not need access.
Well, that'll make sense. I'm just suggesting, as I did in the first part of the show, that if you get a DUI, you're out of your secret clearance. You're out. If something happens, you're out. If you're reprimanded for, like Paul said, taking information or something, right? What was it?
Yeah.
Compromising? You're out. And then you can't go back out into the private sector and sneak back in under and I'll tell you why he did it. And I won't get into any talk shows for this, but I'm not always wrong, but I'm usually not right, okay? He did it because he got reprimanded and he was pissed off. Right? He was disgruntled and he was pissed off about whatever happened to him, I guarantee you. And he left, went out into the private world because he knows he could do that, and he came back in and he screwed him. That's what he did. I'll guarantee you.
Right, and then tried to say that he was a whistleblower.
Right.
When clearly he wasn't. He committed espionage because they have legitimate channels for people that are trying to be a whistleblowers against a different organization or their company. They have different channels and avenues for that individual to take, and he did not take that.
Now, in your paper,
Well,
here-
now the problem is, let me just jump on that. Reading this and reading between the lines, it looks as though he tried to report a security flaw in the CIA's computer system, and that's when he was reprimanded.
right, they didn't take him seriously.
Yeah.
And he's going to prove to them, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
He's going to come back and prove, oh, you don't think you got a security problem, right? Well, let me show you what kind of security
So
problem
that
you got.
internal reporting system, as we probably guessed, right, doesn't actually work.
Self-reporting, you mean?
No, the reporting to, if you see a problem, the
Oh, yeah,
whistleblower
yeah.
inside,
Right.
it probably doesn't work because the NSA ain't going to take any notice of it.
Yeah, I'm convinced that's what he was going to prove to them,
Right.
right? 'Cause people, in my experience, aren't really necessarily motivated by, the things you see on TV, money and girlfriends. That's sometimes. But really, it's just if you treat people poorly, they're going to get you. That's the bottom line.
Exactly. I agree with you.
So he did, upon being caught, agree and sign some documents you wrote here to keep the stuff secret and not disclose it. I didn't know that. Did you know that, Paul?
No.
No. He upon taking the position when he worked for Dell and Booz Allen, you have to sign documents about basically.
So basically, he signed documents saying he wouldn't do exactly what he did.
Oh, as the
Right,
private sector
right,
employee.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, then he did it.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then he did it. And then he later said, according to Wikipedia, that he felt compelled to disclose this information in these classified documents.
So, oh my God, he actually signed something and then didn't do what he said.
The
on
magic
the-
document didn't
Oh
protect
my
us.
God.
Oh,
he's
boy.
going to die.
All right, so let's talk about do you guys get any information on the impact of what he disclosed? I mean, what he harmed? Did you research that?
You want to tackle that one?
Yeah. Based on reports that were coming out of the field for when we did our research on this, terrorist cells were changing the way they were doing business, basically based on information that he disclosed. I mean, real time. This is coming from like agents that were out in the field that knew the whole story, and they basically said the way that they were gathering information on these terrorists, they can't do it anymore. They have to change and find new ways.
Amazing. All because they can't spend $10 on a background check.
Well, I didn't realise there was a load of British intelligence files here.
Oh, yeah.
So why the hell would the British be giving America
Oh, man.
their
Back
intelligence files?
for our last depressing segment on Security Guy Radio.
Security breach. Security breach. Security breach.
There's the drums. Wait for the drums. Welcome back to Security Guy Radio. That's securityguyradio.com. Follow us on, wait a minute, I got my paper right here now. I remember what I forgot. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Google Plus, and Instagram. We're on Google Plus now.
Yeah.
That's what I forgot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Google. I apologize. I know they're listening to my shows, and I put all my stuff on YouTube, so that's Google. I got to be careful. All right, talking about the National Industrial Security Program with our guests, our esteemed guests and former service, not officers. Were you guys officers?
Senior NCO.
Enlisted junior NCO.
Former military personnel. Herbert Barnett and Lisa Ziegler and Professor Chris Silva of Webster University. Now, kind of left off with Mr. Stone and how he got away with all this stuff. So, what do we do about this? I got to tell you, I've been doing background checks for 30 years, and the background check you had at the police department when I got hired in '83, I'm probably with you, Paul, maybe even more. I don't know. I mean, relatives, friends of relatives, your neighbors, every place you looked, your grandmother 5 times, what are you doing? They ask you everything. And, if you were 19 and you kissed a girl who was 17, they wanted to know about it because that's against the law. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
And
they would definitely talk to your previous employers.
Oh, they talked to all your previous employees. They didn't make phone calls. They went out and saw these
Yeah.
people. That was absolutely standard procedure. You went out and you met all these people in person. You did some phone calls on some things, but very minor, right? And I got to tell you, I've worked with the greatest people, men and women, my whole career in law enforcement. I mean, for the most part, super duper clean, straight. And, it used to be back in the day that if I didn't ask you guys about this, maybe you know. If you tried marijuana when I got hired, you're out. Now they want to know, forget marijuana. When's the last time you tried cocaine? If it was 6 months ago, you'll probably get hired. So the standards have gone down because the whole society's changed, right? So is that part of a background thing? Prior to hire, if the way you're describing it, I don't think they can find those things out. A drug test is one thing, but I'll stay clean for 6 months and then I'll go back to doing it. You got to go to the background. You got to talk to your friends and family and find out what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah, they have never dug that deep.
Did you get a drug test?
Yeah, they have random drug tests.
Oh, random. Okay.
Mhm.
all
Yes.
the time.
Mhm.
Still, I'm under random. I still work for the Air Force, and I still can be random drug tested.
Right.
But it doesn't happen often. But you don't know when it's going to happen.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Boy, oh boy. So we wonder why we have problems. So what do we do about this? Did you guys come up with any solutions on how we can fix this? Surely Webster University must have a
Don't call me
solution.
Shirley.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
I think they need the background check that you described sounds much like the one that we did for TS, except for you said it was every year.
No. That's your initial hiring
That's your
check.
initial hire. Okay.
And then they would run credit checks on it. They pulled your driver's license every year. Things that made you, you had to have a license. You had to have good credit.
right.
And they're always watching. They ask you questions all the time.
But I think the supervision was a little bit different. You was working with people that knew your personal habits, and they would know if you had an
You
issue.
knew these
They
guys.
would
You could,
absolutely know if you had an issue.
you could see changes. So I think one solution for those agencies would be to, I don't know, make it more of a smaller unit, right? So if you're responsible for 10 people in your unit, those should be your 10 people that you're supposed to watch. And then your supervisor is supposed to watch his 5 subordinates. And they got to make it small so people, I'm not talking about big brother stuff. I'm just talking about if there's camaraderie and there's a group and they work together and they know. I mean, Paul would know something's wrong with me and I know something wrong with Paul. I've known the guy 20 years now.
Yeah.
I think the challenge with a military unit and probably a intelligence one is that the portability. that you're there for 2, maybe 3 years, and then
Okay.
you're off to another location in the States or maybe even overseas. So that continuity is lacking because you're in that small unit. You definitely are, with a supervisor who's keeping in tabs on you. But 2 years later, he's gone, and a year later, you're gone.
Okay,
And
but
it's
there's still somebody that's left eventually, and then that unit brings in a new guy, and that new guy has to be scrutinized, checked. He has to prove himself. He has to be part of the group, not just assumed he's okay. I mean,
Or is this stuff prevented more from a functional issue, less of a background issue, and more of a functional issue? We was talking at the break about how much information that this guy had, for
I think-
one person.
I don't remember exactly, but I think, didn't he just kind of put this stuff on some flash drives and stuff? I mean, it
Yeah,
wasn't
but
anything
was,
complicated.
No, it wasn't complicated. Basically, he was making copies. I think electronic copies
Yeah.
because it was some videos and stuff. But anytime he
But a
had
lot of information
Yes.
was being
Yes,
funneled
yes.
through him.
a
right?
lot, 10,000 documents.
And was there
or
a
something like
reason
that.
for? Was there a reason why he needed to
That
see
much
all
access.
that, or
It was his job to have access to that information.
But why?
uh,
what was he actually doing? Was he analysing it, or just?
I am not sure
Well, yeah,
exactly what he was
Yeah,
doing.
that I'm not really sure about. I didn't go that deep into it. But I think on a larger level with the NISP, I personally think that since they have so many departments and organizations within the NISP, I think they need to have a better job at communicating with each other. Because, like you stated earlier, it's like too many chiefs, too
Right.
many hands in the pot, and then a lot of the balls just get dropped. Nobody is responsible for it, and things just get out of hand.
Yeah, there's no cop on the beat walking around saying, "What are you doing with the
Right.
flash drive?"
Mhm.
Correct.
I mean, this is not unique to the military, right? So Paul and I went on a consulting job. Remember that one? It was Deluxe, I think it was. Was it Deluxe Studios?
Yeah.
And we're talking about intellectual property protection. So we're doing a walkthrough physical survey, and we get up after we do the survey. So got this over here. What about that? Oh, we never thought about that. We got to put the guard over here. Where's the bag checks? And then we get in a conference call with their IT guy, right? And I said, what kind of physical security do you have in conjunction with software that locks out your USB port so people can't take a thumb drive in there and take? What do you mean? I said, well, surely, and don't call me Shirley, your flash drives are disabled. Well, why would they be? Because you don't need them? Because the secretary doesn't need a thumb drive to write a memo about parking? And the guy that's doing editing needs a giant computer, but that's a different security issue. And the guy had no idea what I was talking about. The head of IT. Okay?
Well, and again, everybody thinks this was an IT issue. This was a physical
This was
security issue.
strictly physical security issue.
That's it.
At the beginning of the
You know?
show, I told you that's what I thought. The connection is they separate the two things when they have to be put together, and if you put them together, it works.
Where he worked, did they do any physical searches as people were coming in and out? I mean, if this was so secret squirrel,
Yeah,
why was he allowed to get in
it seems that he had total access by himself. Because I was reading, doing some research, and they said there's no silver bullet, but one of the things they could have do is make them work in pairs just to access the information and stuff like that. You have cards or whatever that don't work by themselves,
Right.
So that it's at least two people that's accessing this information. And they also had one programmer that wrote a code that would take any keystroke in any computer and anywhere in the system would be logged and monitored. But they thought that was too intrusive. They said that would have
my
definitely
God.
stopped.
now that's been out for
That would have
years.
stopped.
You can buy a
that,
keystroke
yes.
logger
Yeah.
on the
Right.
internet for $100, and it
Correct.
records everything on the computer.
Yes.
I just assumed, like they have in the movies, they had all that stuff.
I mean, it's interesting with this stuff because what do we see with financial crimes? I mean, most financial crime is because somebody's got the power to use or control over the whole process. So he has got the control over the account, plus the checkbook, plus the wire.
So what I'm reading here is that this agency thinks they're doing a great job, and they may be, by the way. Let's assume they're doing a good
Actually,
job
I
of
think we
background
just
check.
fixed it.
We fixed it
Well,
for
this
them.
discussion.
And hires. Our number is, call this government. Well, I only have, kidding though. I think their mission is, background checks, and we're doing as best as we can, and, that'll solve it. And I don't think background checks had anything to
No.
do with Snowden, except, perhaps, like you say,
The CIA.
but that wouldn't be a background check, because if they fired him because he screwed up and took him off his top secret, we wouldn't have to talk about this.
Mhm.
So I think the background checks are a placebo. They make people feel good, but they're not really doing anything. Unless I'm doing a background check and every week, and you got to come in and you got to report and you got to,
But again, where a background check every week wouldn't have helped with this guy.
The only thing I can think of,
the background check which would have been picked up was a CIA issue.
So what if they were, like we had, what was that, CompuTrace we had at the studios on the laptops, right? And so we had a guy, every year he went to the Super Bowl, and every year he lost his laptop. It got stolen every year. And the 5th year he came in and said, it got stolen. I said, that's okay, Brian, because I just happen to have this tracking software I put on your laptop you didn't know about. Let me log in. Oh, look at that. It's at your house. You must have forgot it. All right, so he was stealing these things, right? But that was a simple little check where we came in and checked on the guy.
Wow.
So I disagree. I think part of the background check, if it's once a week, that's exaggeration, would be we got keystroke loggers on your laptop that you're using at home, and we're going to check all that stuff, and we're going to be nosy.
Yeah.
And the irony is the NSA can look at all that stuff, but apparently not looking at our own agencies.
Yes.
And perhaps they should point their microscope at our agencies, and that might stop more problems. This really just burns me up. I don't know. I'm just getting too old and cranky, I guess. Am I wrong?
No.
It's ridiculous.
It's amazing.
It's ridiculous.
It's amazing.
Well, how would you guys change this? You guys are in the system. What would you like to see if you were, running this, and what would you do to change it?
Well, like I said, I'm huge on communication, so I think that they need to have better communication within the NSA.
Interagencies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They need to talk because, like, if the CIA had communicated with the NSA, then
Hey, don't hire this guy because okay,
Like I
makes
said,
sense.
a big red flag. He got fired, or whatever he did, it should have been a big red flag. That as soon as he gave his application, his name came up or something.
Right.
In the system, something like that. And it's a combination of all of that. And like you said, people communicating within teams and just the whole structure.
And I also think that that although we just talked about like background checks and if you did one every day, but I do think that it would eliminate some people if you did background checks more frequently than 5 years and every 10 years.
Yeah.
I do think that it still would be beneficial even if you just did
Correct.
like every 2 years.
Right.
Because a lot can happen. That's a big time span for things to happen and people to, drift off track.
And it's really no for self-identification. It's really no incentive to do that. Like I said, I've been in for a long time. I don't know many people that self-identified.
Well, I think if there was and this goes back to basic law enforcement that's successful. It's the swift apprehension and prosecution deters crime. But if you know you're going to get in the system and 5 years from now, just
Right.
Well,
I'll smoke marijuana for 5 years and worry about it later. There's no motive.
You would
Motivation.
think with the systems that are in place now that the government agencies would be able to pick up if I got arrested down
No,
the
it's
street.
not.
Oh, no, that's not
Right.
true.
It's not all tied
Somewhere-
together.
The local government, the local law enforcement agencies a lot of times do not communicate with the on-base military agencies.
We used to. When we used to pick the
Yeah,
phone and call the MPs, and those
Well,
MPs
I'm
Yeah.
not,
come
I'm
down
not
to
saying
Yeah, if you just happen to get
actually
somebody who
communicate with them. I'm saying
communicates.
that the NSA should be looking
Oh,
at all this.
Well,
stuff
doing
Yeah.
record
and say,
checks. Yeah.
Joe Blow just got
Yeah.
arrested.
Oh
Yeah,
boy,
that's
there's the
true.
music. There's the music.
Right.
We're out. Well, this was very interesting. Wish we had more time. Maybe we'll come back and follow up on this.
I know, I like this.
All right, tune in next week for another exciting episode of Security Guy Radio. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Google+, and Instagram. Until next week, cheerio.
Cheers.